Welcome. If you enjoy this type of content, then subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on any of our latest and greatest uploads. On April 20th, 1999, Columbine High School seniors Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold shot dead 12 students and a teacher and wounded 24 others before committing suicide. Immediately after the massacre, significant blame was directed at the band and, specifically, at its outspoken frontman. In the weeks following the shootings, media reports about Harris and Klebold portrayed them and the Trench Coat Mafia as part of a gothic cult. Early media reports allege that the shooters were fans and were wearing the group's t-shirts during the massacre. And although these claims were later proven to be false, news outlets continued to run sensationalist stories with headlines such as "Killers worshipped Rock Freak Manson" and "Devil-worshipping Maniac told kids to kill." Speculation in national media and among the public led many to believe that Manson's music and imagery were the shooter's sole motivation, despite reports that revealed that the two were not fans and, on the contrary, had nothing but contempt for the music. Despite this, Marilyn Manson were widely criticized by religious, political, and entertainment industry figures. Lynyrd Skynyrd, for example, offered to give the frontman a can of whoop-ass. A day after the shooting, Michigan State Senator Dale Sugars attended the band's concert along with policy advisors, a local police officer, and the state Senate's Sergeant-at-Arms at the Van Andel Arena in Grand Rapids, Michigan, to conduct research for a proposed bill requiring parental warnings on concert tickets and promotional material for any performer that had released a record bearing the parental advisory sticker in the last 5 years. According to Sugars, the show began with the singer wearing satanic wings as he leapt from a cross that was eventually set on fire. He then described seeing fans, whom he described as normal kids, under Manson's control as he performed a sequence that glorified the killing of a police officer. Finally, he reported the singer recounting a dream sequence in which cops performed sex acts on him before Jesus Christ descended out of a sky made of LSD and told him the real name of God is drugs, after which the band launched into "I don't like the drugs, but the drugs like me." Sugars expressed concern that these shows had adverse effects on concert goers. Under mounting pressure in the days after Columbine, the group postponed their last 5 North American tour dates out of respect for the victims and their families. Subsequently, the band canceled the remaining dates of the tour out of respect for the victims, explaining, "It's not a great atmosphere to be out playing rock and roll shows for us or the fans." However, Manson steadfastly maintained that music, movies, books, or video games are not to blame, stating, "The media has unfairly scapegoated the music industry and so-called goth kids, and has speculated with no basis in truth that artists like myself are in some way to blame. This tragedy was a product of ignorance, hatred, and an access to guns. I hope the media's irresponsible finger-pointing doesn't create more discrimination against kids who look different." 2 days later, Manson published his response to these accusations in an op-ed piece for Rolling Stone titled "Columbine, Whose Fault Is It?", where he castigated America's gun culture, the political influence of the National Rifle Association, and the media's irresponsible coverage, which he said facilitated the placing of blame on a scapegoat instead of debating more relevant societal issues. On May 4th, a hearing on the marketing and distribution of violent content to minors by the television, music, film, and video game industries was held by the United States Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. The committee heard testimony from the former Secretary of Education and co-founder of conservative violent entertainment watchdog group Empower America, William Bennett, the Archbishop of Denver, Charles J. Chaput, as well as professors and mental health professionals. Speakers criticized the band, its label mate 9 Inch Nails, and the 1999 film The Matrix for their alleged contribution to a cultural environment, enabling violence such as the Columbine shootings. The committee requested that the Federal Trade Commission and the United States Department of Justice investigate the entertainment industry's marketing practices to minors. After concluding the European and Japanese legs of their tour on August 8th, the band withdrew from public view. Those taking a stance against Manson claimed that his rock group was perhaps the sickest group ever promoted by a mainstream record company. According to Michael Moore in his documentary film Bowling for Columbine, that shortly after the attack, it seemed that the entire focus was that the two killers were motivated to commit this act because they listened to Marilyn Manson. 2 years after Columbine, Manson was expected to perform in Denver, Colorado at the Ozfest at Mile High Stadium. As a result, protesters gathered to prevent Manson from performing. One speaker said that Marilyn Manson's music promoted what he called Columbine-like behaviors such as hate, violence, death, suicide, and drug use. The protesters were largely made up of the Citizens for Peace and Respect, an organization that consisted of locals, churches, and Columbine families. Marilyn Manson's response. Though Manson initially refused to appear on news stations and talk shows, and he canceled several shows out of respect for the victims of Columbine, he later spoke out in many different interviews. One such notable interview was on the April 2001 episode of The O'Reilly Factor, where Manson once again denied that the band's music was responsible for Columbine. Bill O'Reilly pointed out Manson's controversial behavior, such as committing a sexual act with another male live on stage. In response, Manson claimed that this was not planned and was entertaining at the time. O'Reilly also challenged Manson by stating that never before in the United States had there been more corrupting influences on the nation's youth at one time, and that while Manson claims that his messages are not meant to be taken a certain way, young people can misinterpret his lyrics. O'Reilly also argued that disturbed kids without direction from responsible parents could misinterpret the message of his music as endorsing the belief that when I'm dead, then everybody's going to know me. Manson responded, "Well, I think that's a very valid point, and I think that it's a reflection of not necessarily this program, but of television in general, that if you die and enough people are watching you become a martyr, you become a hero, you become well known. So when you have these things like Columbine and you have these kids who are angry and they have something to say and no one's listening, the media sends a message that says if you do something loud enough and it gets our attention, then you will be famous for it. Those kids ended up on the cover of Time magazine twice. The media gave them exactly what they wanted. That's why I never did any interviews around that time when I was being blamed for it, because I didn't want to contribute to something that I found to be reprehensible." Manson also told O'Reilly that his lyrics do not promote suicide, but that they encourage getting through feelings like that. In interviews, Manson claimed that he does not promote violence, hate, suicide, and other atrocities of which he has been accused. Rather, he promotes not being afraid to be different and to challenge societal views and norms. He repeatedly asserts that there is a difference between art and real life. And with that, we've reached the end of this video, all about Marilyn Manson and the Columbine High School Massacre. If you enjoyed it and you found it helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in the next one.